Hey my nerds, and welcome back for a May 10th special. A year ago today, last Memoria came out, and a year later, Scars of Cerebra came out on the exact same day. So I thought to celebrate that I would make a fun and utterly fair, completely unbiased analysis of the Memoria's evolutionary plausibility. Let's see how we get on, shall we? For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, let me introduce the Memoria to you. While humanoid in much of their appearance, they are a species of the extreme. They have very pale skin and hair. All Memorii have the same colouring. It's rather distinctive. Their hair starts out black at the roots, then fades to white. This basically looks like a very bad dye job. Their eyes are dark too, which is definitely biologically a mistake that the author made. Why do I think that? Well, because the Memorii are light sensitive. They live in a place at very low light levels, meaning that it would make more sense for them to have blue eyes or grey or even white eyes, since those are better suited for detecting light than dark eyes. I really hate it when authors don't get the basics right, don't you? And that's not even the most egregious mistake that this author makes. In her books, the Memorii and humans can breed. Not only that, the children that are produced by this union are also able to have children of their own. Why is this a problem? Because the author herself refers to the Memorii as another species, but they can't be. The Memorii must be another race, not another species. As a rule, if two creatures can't breed and produce fertile offspring, then they are two separate species. There are weird exceptions to this rule, but we're gonna skip over those for here for the sake of time, although I recommend you do some further reading on the subject if you're interested. But since none of the exceptions make up for this author's failings, they cannot excuse her mistake. But this ability of humans and Memorii to interbreed gives us a very interesting insight into what their evolutionary origins are. We'll go into more details about how later, but for now, let's leave it at this. The humans and Memorii must have been evolutionarily interconnected at some point in their history, and then separated into two separate evolutionary niches that allowed them to diversify, but not long enough that they had time to evolve into two separate species. More on that in a moment, but for now, let's explore the most exciting feature of the Memorii, their ability to manipulate memories. This ability can be split into two separate categories. Category 1, the superior ability to remember, and Category 2, the ability to take memories from other beings and give memories to others. The author adopts a very fancy approach when it comes to justifying these two abilities, by which I mean she gives very little details on how either of these might be possible, making it quite difficult to actually judge the biological plausibility of these abilities. And I can see why the author did this. The main gift of fantasy is that it gives authors the option to handwave this sort of thing. But we are trying to explain the biology here, so how might we go about it? Well, I wrote to the author about this point, and she got back to me to say, Dear Rachel, thank you so much for featuring my book on the show, blah blah blah, boring author stuff, and here. With regards to Category 1, if you look across the animal kingdom, you'll note that not even all creatures, people or whoever, have the same ability to edit memories, suggesting there is a genetic and environmental component when it comes to memory. She doesn't half sound dull, this one, does she? But she does have a point. Two conditions that come to mind are hypothymesia and edactic memories. Hypothymesia is when people have incredibly enhanced abilities when it comes to their autobiographical memories. So they can remember exact details of their life in much greater detail and with much more accuracy than most people can. While edactic memories are what is more colloquially known as photographic memories, and it's where people can recall an image accurately in great detail, sometimes for a short period of time, sometimes for longer. The Memorii appear to have a combination of both of these traits, and then some. So they are able to not only recall great detail about their own lives and what they did, when and where, but also about the surroundings that it looked like when they formed those memories, and also this for other people's memories. Now, whether the cause of these conditions is psychological or biological, we don't know. There is some evidence of people having differences in regions of their brain, such as the amygdala, and in the activity of some parts of their brain that might be responsible for their ability when it comes to these conditions. The author says she's working off the idea that there is a genetic or perhaps a socially induced behaviour that it's coming out as a result of the memori passing on these memories that is causing these traits, but she got really vague on that point, so I'm guessing that we've reached the limit of her ability to explain what's going on. One thing I will pause to say here, having read her books, there seems to be an in-world variation on how good the memori are with their memories, with some people being better than others, and I think that would have been a cool thing for her to explore more of, but she didn't, so, you know, you can't get everything you want in books these days. But what about the ability to exchange memories? The memory thief aspect of her stories, you know, what the whole concept is based around. Now this is where the author has leaned heaviest on the side of magic. And when I asked her if she had an explanation, she told me to stop asking questions that nobody wanted to know the answer to, and went off on one about what a stupid idea for a channel science and fantasy was. So I told her she was just jealous she didn't come up with the idea herself. Now then, let's get on to the evolution of the memori. We've already established that the memori are another race of humanity, so how might they have diverged evolutionarily? There are two scenarios. Either the memori came first, with regular humans diverging and losing their memory retention abilities, or the reverse happened, so the memori gained their superior memory abilities after the divergence from humanity. There's no evidence given in the books towards either of these options expressly, and the author has now stopped responding to my questions, so won't answer me on the subject, so we're going to have to make some assumptions. Here we go. Firstly, evolutionarily speaking, it is tricky to lose something advantageous. When it comes to the survival of the fittest, traits that make us more likely to survive longer are more likely to be passed on via our genetic information to the next generation. So those traits are more likely to continue, while those that make us less able to survive and reproduce are more likely to be lost from the evolutionary gene pool. So which of these two options is more likely in light of evolution? You would think that it would be the memori diverging from regular humanity and developing their memory abilities during this divergence, right? Because who wouldn't want to have a much better memory? Except that there are some disadvantages that come along with this ability, such as the memori needing to live underground and near total darkness because of the damage the sunlight does to their memories. They have a whole culture of cave fishing and underground farming as a way of sustaining themselves. So this is a serious limitation for their race. And the question becomes, is the ability to move freely around in the sun more advantageous than the benefits of improved memory retention and being able to exchange memories? And to that point, do we even know for sure that having a better memory or being able to pass on memories to other people confers an advantage for survival? It obviously will to a certain extent, such as being able to remember which berries are poisonous much better or what the scent of predators smells like, but we're talking about the types of memories people with edactic memories and hypothymesia have. How much more adept at survival and reproduction are they than people with average memories? And more than this, there's a lot of very interesting research happening right now into our own ability to edit our memories as we go through life. We often change our own narrative to better suit our ends. And there's evidence that when people have PTSD, they are unable to do this. Instead, their memory is locked in the form it was in when they experienced the traumatic event. Their inability to edit the memory is thought to be contributing to their struggle to heal. So if you have a race of people who pride themselves on their ability to remember the past exactly as it happened, then there is an argument to be made for the society being a more accurate reflection than our own, but we have no evidence that this is actually helpful when it comes to survival or reproduction. Would you have a second child if you could recall the exact details of how painful the first birth was? Would you have any at all if your mother was able to pass on the memory of your own birth to you? As a race, the memori seems to be suffering from this in the books. The author seems to have recognised this point because in the books the memori are suffering from these problems of what we would think of as better memory abilities. The author seems to have been leaning towards this point because in the book she put the memori on the brink of extinction, which is never exactly a good sign that a race is doing particularly well survival-wise. So I'm guessing this was her intention. Either the memori being forced to live underground or the memory abilities they have, or a combination of the both, seems to leave the memori circling the drain of their own inevitable extinction. For this reason, it would look like the most plausible evolutionary path would be the memori coming first, with the other races of humanity diverging evolutionarily from them as they moved above ground and lost their enhanced memory abilities. I imagine for the people in the world, it's kind of like the jealousy I feel when I think about how we used to have tails and now we don't, which is just sad, and I really would have enjoyed having a tail. Alright, so how did the memori compare when it comes to the scale of plausibility? Well, not great. And I'm not saying that because the author dissed my channel. I'm being completely unbiased when I say that the magical exchanging of memories is implausible. I would put them on a par with the sandworms, but then there was that whole eye colour thing, which I just can't forgive. That author should have known better. As a consequence of this, the memori are heading all the way down, and I hope that a certain author learns from this for next time. I hear she's working on a book now all about emotion magic, so we'll have to revisit and check out that when it's done. Now, despite all the flaws when it comes to the scientific accuracies of this story, this author's books are actually pretty good, so you should still check them out if you haven't already. Well, there you go, my nerds. Like and subscribe, and let me know in the chat what species you would like me to get to next time. Have a great week. Bye!